What's going on, guys? Sticks here with the Token Minorities, bringing you another deck on Pokemon TCGO, and today I am bringing you a deck centered around Sylveon-GX. And before I get into the deck, just a reminder that if you guys like this video or found it helpful, please leave a like, drop a comment, click that subscribe button. Helps us out a ton and lets us do more cool stuff for you guys. And as for the question of the day, as you can see, I am running a, well, quote-unquote quad Sylveon disruption deck, and this was a deck that I was kind of back and forth about whether or not I would actually do a deck profile on it, but I decided that, you know what, I didn't do one on Quad Lapras, and this deck is being hyped as a better Quad Lapras and as the best disruption in the current format, so I decided that, you know what, I might as well try it out and see what's going on. And my question of the day stems from that. What is your guys' opinion of disruption in the metagame and as a strategy? In my opinion, disruption with the intent to take prizes and win the game off of that is actually, I feel like it's actually kind of skillful. Because, like, this type of disruption, you disrupt your opponent. I mean, you have so many discard cards. You have, like, Skull Grunt, Hammers, Team Flare Grunt, that type of thing. So, I mean, you have plenty of ways of disrupting your opponent, and that is the ultimate goal early on. However, late game, you have a choice between two different win cons. The initial win con is the one that the game was designed for, and that is to take all 6 prizes. This deck is definitely capable of doing that once you've disrupted your opponent to where they wouldn't be able to take prizes off of you. An alternate win con is deck out, and as you can see, we're running a Team Rocket's Handiwork for that to help that as well. But this deck has actually 2 different win cons, and it's kind of skillful in my opinion to figure out, okay, when do I stop disrupting and when do I start going for my alternate win cons, aka when do I stop trying to just continually hammer away my opponent's energy, and when do I start attacking or going for the mill strategy. So disruption, I think, is actually rather skillful if there is the intent to take prizes or to try to deck your opponent out late game. Mill is completely different in my opinion. Mill, I think, is a very, very, very autopilot deck. Just because, alright, the goal of this deck, get rid of your opponent's deck as quickly as possible. I mean, that is the win con from the start, and that's just what the entire deck is catered towards, so you can kind of autopilot when playing that deck. However, with Sylveon, you have to recognize, okay, what is my win con actually going to be? Is it going to be prizes, or is it going to be decking my opponent out? And I mean, yeah, this deck does have the deck out option, like Mill. However, it's not as straightforward from the beginning, so I believe there's more skill in straight up disruption rather than playing a Mill deck, which I feel you can kind of autopilot your way to victory some of the time with. But that's just my opinion. Let me know what your guys' opinions are of disruption in the metagame, besides just screw that thing, I hate it, and everything that, and everyone that plays it. I mean, yes, every one of us feels that way. But anyway, on to the deck. Like I said, it is centered around Sylveon-GX, and this line of Pokemon, I actually, Aura and I talked about it, and we decided to go with 4-3 instead of 4-4, which my Quad Sylveon name would indicate. I just kind of went with that because that's what people were going with like Quad Lapras, Quad Tauros, stuff like that. So I was just like, you know what, Quad Sylveon, even though we're not running 4 Sylveon, so sorry about that. But Sylveon, 3 different attacks. 1 energy, magical ribbon, search your deck for up to 3 cards and put them in your hands. Honestly, it is just a better version of Collect from Lapras, which allowed Lapras to function the way it did, because instead of just drawing 3 cards, you search your deck for any 3 cards and put them in your hand. So you can search your deck for an Enhanced Hammer, Pokemon Center Lady, and a Stadium, or just really whatever you could possibly want on that turn, or for next turn to disrupt your opponent, Sylveon is able to search for, which is why this disruption deck is so powerful. Its second attack, Fairy Wind, for 110 damage, it does 110 damage for a Fairy and a DCE. Not bad. It 2-shots. It 2-shots most things. Some things are 3 shots, so this is the attack that you will be using if you decide to take the prize route later in the game. And then Plea GX. Put 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon and all cards attach them into your opponent's hand. This is actually, unfortunately, ridiculously strong on this card, because one way your opponent can try to play around it is load something up in the background. That way they don't have to worry about Team Flare Grunt as a way of getting rid of energy. I mean, yeah, they have to worry about hammers, but if they're using basic energy, then Crushing Hammer only has a 50-50 shot of working. So if they power up something big in the background and then just steamroll you, that's one of the ways that this deck can run into some problems. Well, GX is just like, yeah, that thing's starting to look a little scary, and I see you have something else powered up too. I'm just going to throw those right back in your hand. So, just, I don't know. It's very, very strong in this deck, and unfortunately it combos very well with Magical Ribbon and the disruption of that. For the rest of the Pokemon, just 4 Eevee and 3 Sylveon. Straight up, just simple. Plain and simple. We want Sylveon, and we want them out now. Eevee with the Energy Evolution, you have to use this one. I know I've been using the other one a little bit, but Energy Evolution Eevee is 1,000,000% crucial in this deck, because you can get up a Sylveon turn 1 by just attaching a Fairy Energy, and as you can see, we're not running any searching options that can get us in a Sylveon. Nest Ball only grabs us Eevee, so the only way that we get Sylveon is by playing a Fairy Energy onto Eevee and then evolving straight into that. So that's what we got going on there. Just plain and simple, Energy Evolution Eevee and 3 Sylveon. If you want to run 4, be my guest. I just found that, I mean, if your opponent knocks out 3 Sylveon, then you lose anyway, but there is something to be said for running a 4th one in there, just in case. As for the items, running 4-2 of Crushing Hammer and Enhanced Hammer, you can run a little heavier line of Enhanced Hammer, but considering they guaranteed get rid of special energy when you play them, and they aren't always useful in some matchups that don't play special energy, I decided, you know what, we can get away with 2, but 4 Crushing Hammer, 100% necessary. I hate this card, but man, it is good in this deck. A lot of these decks have been running Max Potion, and in my opinion, I actually think Max Potion is better. Overall, it's better. That being said, I wanted to try out Fairy Drop because it has some merits in some situations. Max Potion gets rid of the energy that you have attached to Sylveon, but it completely heals it up. So in that case, Max Potion is a lot better. And if you actually run this deck in a competition, I would recommend Max Potion. I just wanted to try out Fairy Drop because, I mean, it simply heals up 50 damage with no discard, nothing like that. So if you have a Sylveon that's powered up in the end that you're trying to attack with, but you also want to heal, then Fairy Drop is great for that as well. So I just decided to try out Fairy Drop, and it works in situations where your opponent is like chipping away at you instead of going for bigger attacks. So I mean, try out Fairy Drop, but also try out Max Potion. I just decided to go with Fairy Drop because, I mean, everybody's running Max Potion. I wanted to try something a little bit different, and it's worked out pretty well so far. 1 Field Blower to get rid of stadiums and tools that can benefit my opponent, specifically Choice Band, because Choice Band actually hurts quite a bit against Sylveon, because that's an extra 30 damage that we're going to have to work with. 2 Nest Ball, just as the searching option for Eevee. You can just as easily use Level Ball to search out Eevee. I just went with Nest Ball because shiny. 4 Puzzle of Time, and this is why Sylveon is so good. 4 Puzzle of Time let you reuse 2 cards that are in your discard pile. So like lets you grab another Stadium, another Hammer, another Fairy Drop. Anything that's in the discard pile that you want to get back, you can use with Puzzle of Time. And with Sylveon's Magical Ribbon, you can just grab 2 Puzzle of Time and then something else on top of that. So be very, very careful with how you play Puzzle of Time in this deck. It is probably the most precious resource of anything. 4 VS Seeker to reuse all of our supporters, pretty straightforward. And then as for these supporters, running 1 Hex Maniac to shut down abilities that could cause us problems. 2 Lysandre to kind of disrupt, but also bring up stuff that we want to maybe hammer away. Well, mainly just bring up stuff that we want to hammer away or get prizes on Shamans in the late game with Fairy Wind. 4 N, this deck does not take prizes until the very, very end of the game. So N will always come in handy in getting you a fresh hand of 6 cards while putting your opponent a little bit lower if they've taken some knockouts. 1 Olympia, kind of healing and getting Sylveon out of dodge at the same time. Just like, okay, my active's damaged, I'm going to Olympia into a fresh one on the bench. Pokemon Center Lady is basically the same type of idea as Olympia, except you're able to heal off more damage, and also in case Lapras paralyzes you or something, trying to get a clean 2-hit knockout, Pokemon Center Lady can get rid of that. One Kukui. Now, I'll be honest, not fully sure why I'm running a Kukui in a Disruption deck, but when I was building this deck, I decided to try to build it from scratch. When I was building with Kukui and putting in Kukui, I saw that Sylveon can two-shot a lot of stuff, but there are certain things that Sylveon would need to three-shot. Kukui can actually help out with that. Just using Kukui one turn sets up like Decidueye to be knocked out in 2 Fairy Winds. So just stuff like that, I decided to put Kukui in there. I'm not sure how I feel about it. Honestly, it's helped me out in a couple instances, but overall, it's kind of meh, and if you want to go with a better tech supporter, then I would highly encourage that. I just like Kukui. 1 Sycamore, N is our preferred draw support, but Sycamore, I mean, you can't beat the 7 cards that you get off it. 1 Skyla to search for a Fairy Drop or a Hammer during your turn, as opposed to having to wait till next turn to use it if you searched out with the Magical Ribbon. 3 Team Flare Grunt, just discard more and more energy off our opponents, run them out of resources. 1 Team Rocket's Handiwork for late game if you decide that the deck out game is probably the best route for you. And then Team Skull Grunt, running 2 of those to help with the energy denial that this deck is centered towards. So, because, I mean, at its root, this deck is centered around denying your opponent energy, denying your opponent the resources to attack you, and then going ham with Sylveon in the end. So, I mean, that's why Team Flare Grunt, Team Skull Grunt, Hammers, all of those contribute to the energy denial game that this deck is mainly focused around. And finally, running 9 Fairy Energy. I mean, that's what we want because Magical Ribbon, it evolves Eevee, blah, blah, blah. And then also, I'm running 2 DCE. That way we can power up Fairy Wind or Plea GX in a second turn if we need it, as opposed to having to just attach Fairy Energy after Fairy Energy in order to be able to use those attacks. DCE is mainly for that. But yeah, I mean, that is the deck. I tried to make it simple, but also have everything that a Disruption deck needs. So we'll see how it goes. I'm not the best at Disruption. I will 100% admit that. So we'll see how these matches go, and if I'm able to determine when I need to stop disrupting and start either decking out or taking prizes. So yeah, let's go ahead and try to find one with this deck. Alrighty, we have found one against Ivan Sky with a, oh boy, this could actually be a really, really interesting matchup. It looks like we're up against a grass deck that probably has Vileplume, and if Vileplume can lock us out of our items, well, that's going to be just a bad time all over. So I'm actually very interested to see how this matchup plays out, because, I mean, if it's Lurantis Vileplume, I think we still should be okay. Decidueye actually could be a really, really big problem, because this deck relies on keeping our opponents from attacking, and if they get damage on the board, we're able to heal that off. Well, Decidueye is able to attack, well, is able to damage without actually attacking with Feather Arrow. So this could be interesting. I'm very curious to see how this matchup goes. Now, granted, I don't play Disruption a lot. Like I said, I rarely play it at all. The only times I ever actually play it are during deck videos. And so I'm not versed in all the matchups. I don't necessarily know how to play them the perfect way. But for the time being, I feel like just my knowledge of the game should allow me to do decently. For the time being, I am going to evolve my Eevee immediately into a Sylveon. Do I want to play the Fairy Garden down? Or do I want to wait? Actually, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and play it down. That way I have free retreat for whatever reason. And okay, I get some stuff I can work with. I have Team Flare Grunt to get rid of energy off actives. I have a Nest Ball to be able to go ahead and grab an Eevee. And yeah, just going to call it a turn right there. Let's see what my opponent does. Okay, so like I said, I'm trying out Fairy Drop as opposed to Max Potion. I think that Fairy Drop in this matchup might actually be quite a bit more beneficial, because my opponent won't necessarily be hitting for any big damage. Like, the biggest damage they'll get is maybe, well, I guess theoretically the biggest damage they could get is 150 with Deep Hurricane from Lugia, but with the energy disruption, I won't allow my opponent to get that amount of energy off on my Sylveon. So probably the biggest attack they'll be hitting me for is 60 if there's no energy on the Tauros. So, I mean, I should be in a pretty good spot, and then Fairy Drop allows me to heal up damage without having to discard energy. So, yeah, I mean, this is fairly straightforward. My opponent plays down a regular grass energy onto the Tauros, and he gets a Decidueye turn 1. So that's going to be actually problematic, because he'll be able to start damaging, immediately start racking up the damage. Hits the Sylveon, that's fine. Okay, goes into Tauros to take the hit. That's actually a lot better for me, because it allows me to just Team Flare Grunt the energy off that Tauros and save my Crushing Hammer for later. Let's go ahead. Actually, no. Definitely Team Flare Grunt. That way I have my Crushing Hammer for later. I really don't need to do anything, so I'm just going to Magical Ribbon, grab... What do I want to grab? I need to be very, very stingy with my Puzzles of Time, because I only need to do that. I only need to use them when I absolutely have to, and I don't want to use them if I... Well, and I don't want to use them just because late game I might be like, oh, I need such and such. Well, I used all my Puzzles of Time, so I can't grab that. So I want to be very, very careful with how I use them. I am just going to go ahead and Magical Ribbon, grab the Hex Maniac, Enhanced Hammer, and a regular Fairy energy. The regular Fairy allows me to evolve my Eevee on the bench into a Sylveon immediately. That way there's no, like, my opponent trying to knock out my Eevee on the bench for easy prizes. And with the combination of Fairy Garden, I should be able to retreat back and forth between Sylveon in order to be able to just keep them healthy, keep them out of harm's way. Shaman comes down. Shaman's going to be an easy prize late game. Now, I'm probably going to be playing this deck wrong, because, I mean, I know that it's all about disruption, but at the same time, like, I feel like I need to take prizes in the end to be able to win. So, okay, I just want to let you guys know once again that I am not the best with disruption. I don't know exactly, and my opponent's got another Decidueye, that's phenomenal, but I don't know the ins and outs of disruption, so I'm probably going to be playing it wrong overall, but I'm still going to go for it. Let's see, I mean, let's see how it goes. My opponent does hit me for 70 damage with that Horn Attack. Fairy Drop comes in very clutch right here, because what I can do is go ahead and evolve up my Eevee into a Sylveon. There's another one of each in the deck, that is fine. If I can get a Fairy Garden, that would be great, but for the time being, I'm going to immediately Fairy Drop. I'm going to want to save my Fairy Drops for the perfect situations, like only use them if I absolutely need to. And then I'm going to end, see if I can draw into an Enhanced Hammer. I do not, but I don't think... Let's see. My opponent will actually be 10 damage short of being able to knock out my Sylveon this turn with a combination of Horn Attack and... Feather Arrows. And unfortunately, it looks like my other Fairy Garden... Well, my opponent got rid of my Fairy Garden. But let's see. I'm grabbing the Fairy Drop for sure. Do I want to grab another one? But let's grab the Enhanced Hammer, guaranteed. And then... Do I want to grab a Crushing Hammer or another Fairy Drop? I think... Yeah, I think that's a play. Let's grab Fairy Drop, Enhanced Hammer, Fairy Drop. That way I can get rid of the DCE while also healing up my opponent, while healing up my Sylveon. If my opponent gets another Decidueye, he will be able to knock out my Sylveon, and he actually plays down another Tauros. That's completely fine with me, actually, because that means he won't be able to get a third Decidueye. And yeah, the extra 40 damage is annoying, but an extra 60 damage each turn would, plain and simple, be devastating, and I'm not sure how I'd be able to necessarily combat that. My opponent is deciding to start Feather Arrowing my Sylveon on the bench and then ends me again. I mean, I still get a fresh hand of 6 cards. I hopefully will draw into my Fairy Drops or something to help out, and I do get my Fairy Drop, so that is very nice. Finding Fury Belts up the Tauros. That's okay. I should be able to get a third Sylveon in play this turn. I can Nest Ball for my last Eevee. and then evolve that, and then Fairy Drop up my active. Field Blower, get rid of the... what do I want to Field Blower? Oh, and I even draw into an Enhanced Hammer, so that's perfect for me. I could Team Flare Grunt, actually. But I think the better play is just Enhanced Hammer, get that use when I can. Field Blower, get rid of Fighting Fury Belt, and... do I want to get rid of the other Fighting Fury Belt? Yeah, let's go ahead and do that so I can potentially draw into my Parallel City later. Fairy Drop up my Sylveon. I need another one so that I don't get knocked out by Horn Attack into double Feather Arrow. But either way, I am just going to grab another Eevee and get a third Sylveon. That way I have these guys in play. I have them ready to go. And this is a situation where Max Potion would be really nice, because I would be able to just Max Potion up my Sylveon and then just play a single energy and be able to Magical Ribbon. But I don't know. I just like not having to discard with Fairy Drop and then being able to heal up damage. So I get double Puzzle. Do I want to play that? Because I can... yeah, I need to, just to keep my Sylveon from being able to be knocked out by a Horn Attack into double Feather Arrow. And I am just going to grab 2 Fairy Drop with my double Puzzle. So yeah, in this case, Max Potion would have been a lot nicer, because I would have been able to just heal up my Sylveon completely and then just attach an energy and go from there. But okay, I am going to Magical Ribbon, grab 2 Crushing Hammer and a Fairy Drop, or do I want to grab a Hex Maniac? Actually, that was an Olympia, sorry. Let's grab, actually... no, do I want to N or Hex Maniac? Let's grab Hex instead of the Fairy Drop, because my opponent will not be able to get a ton of damage on board this turn, because he'll just be able to double Feather Arrow. And this is why the matchup isn't... this is why the matchup I was actually very curious about, and why this is probably one of the not as good ones. Actually, you know what? For Max Potion, it might be good. I don't know. It's just, I was very curious about how this matchup would work, because I'm not able to deny my opponent damage by simply getting rid of their energy, because they do have Feather Arrow. They get another DCE down. I am going to be getting rid of that sucker as soon as I can. My opponent starts damaging the Sylveon on the bench. I can heal that up with Fairy Drops later in the game anyway. I should be okay. And then we see the N come down. That's fine. Gets me a fresh hand of 6 cards. My PCL is prized, unfortunately. But I do draw into my Fairy Drop, so I can use that just fine. My opponent will Horn Attack. Actually, I could potentially get all the energy off my opponent's board this turn. Let's start... in the meantime, let's start powering up my clean Sylveon on the bench. That way I can hit for damage when I need to. Crushing Hammer, see if I can get it. Yes, I do. Let's get rid of that Grass Energy, and then I can combo that into Team Flare Grunt to be able to get rid of the DCE. And now let's just Magical Ribbon. Grab probably Enhanced Hammer, Crushing Hammer. Let's grab the Puzzle. That way I have double Puzzle in my hand. Let's grab the VS Seeker. No, let's grab an N, and what else do I want to grab? I want to save my Hex Maniac for when I need it. Let's grab Crushing Hammer instead of Enhanced Hammer, because Enhanced Hammer, I don't know that my opponent will play the DCE down, and by this time I've already gotten rid of a couple of my opponent's DCEs, so it's more than like, oh, he has another DCE, so I should have grabbed the Enhanced Hammer. My opponent will be able to Feather Arrow again, start spreading the damage around. That's honestly okay with me, because I'll still be able to get rid of this, get rid of the DCE off my opponent's active Tauros, and I just have to be careful. Okay, so we get a double Fairy Drop, which is incredibly nice. Let's go for the Crushing Hammer. Yeah, let's go for the Crushing Hammer, see if I can knock this DCE off, which I do. So that means I don't have to grab an Enhanced Hammer with my double Puzzle. Let's go ahead and Olympia, heal off a little bit of damage into my other Sylveon. Where do I want to play the energy? Or do I want to play it? Doesn't matter. For the time being, let's go ahead and Fairy Drop up my active Sylveon. Just heal up 50 damage. I'm going to hold on to the Fairy Drop, I think, for the time being. Let's get another energy onto the Where do I want to play this? I don't want to play on the... Okay, I'm just going to load up a Sylveon. That way I have the attack ready when I need it. Let's... Magical Ribbon once again. Grab a Hex Maniac finally. Grab... Grab a Crushing Hammer and Enhanced Hammer. Yeah, that's the play. Let's go ahead and grab those Disruption. That way, no matter what energy my opponent plays, I can potentially get rid of that. If my opponent plays their last DCE, that thing will just be gone. I'm holding on to my double puzzle. That way, I can grab exactly what I want when I need it and not a, oh, I could kind of use it right now. No, I only want to use my double puzzle when I know exactly what I'm going to need, and I'm going to use it on that very turn. So my my Sylveon on the bench is starting to get damaged quite a bit. Parallel City comes down. Now, I could limit my opponent's bench, but I could also reduce the damage that their Decidueye that they're starting to power up could do to me. But I'd limit myself, but I mean, that's fine. Let's go ahead and just heal up the Sylveon. Get some of that damage. I miss the Crushing Hammer. All four are in the discard pile. That is fine. Let's Hex Maniac. Keep my opponent from being able to use Feather Arrow this turn. Let's go ahead and grab the Team Rocket's Handiwork. I'm going to start milling my opponent at this point. Just try to deck them out, because I think that's the play at this point. I think that's the play right now. Again, I'm not sure. I don't play Disruption enough to know when you stop going for energy denial and start going for deck out, or when you stop going for energy denial and start going for like prizes, that type of thing. So I'm really not sure. My opponent just passes, so that is great for me. Let's go ahead and actually do it. No. So my opponent's only played one forest. I want to... Yeah, let's go ahead and play that. Get rid of my opponent's forest. And then... Yeah, because I want to keep my opponent's Shaman on the board. That way it's just a free prize whenever I want to start knocking stuff out. Let's play another energy onto my active Sylveon. And then you know what? For this turn, let's go ahead and Team Rocket's Handiwork. See if I can discard some cards from my opponent. That is great. It looks like I got another... Looks like I got rid of a Forest of Giant Plants and a Floatstone. So those are both great. Floatstone is good because it locks my opponent's Tauros into the active spot. That way he can't... that way he obviously can't attack with it. Or he can't retreat it into his Decidueye and be able to attack. Or retreat into Lugia and be able to attack. He's locked into that Tauros, which can only do 60 damage at a time. Yeah, my opponent will be able to start Feather Arrowing once again. But his deck's looking kind of low at this point. And I should have the ability to recur stuff into my deck. Like I have N, I have Puzzle to be able to grab N again and recycle stuff. And my opponent's actually gonna N as well. I'm okay with this, because even though I did have a hand of stuff that I liked, I mean, I don't need... I mean, I still have enough stuff in my deck that I'm okay with. And okay, I draw into... Okay, my opponent does get rid of my forest, of my Parallel City. He's powering up that Decidueye. That thing's starting to be a threat. Let's play another energy onto Sylveon. And I'm really questioning why I put Kukui in this deck to begin with. I mean, yeah, I know I said that it was for that extra 20 damage when I'm attacking. But, I mean, this just shows how much I don't know Disruption. Because, I mean, I'm going for this. I put in a Kukui in a deck that really doesn't attack and does not rely on attacking. So, I mean, that just, yeah, I don't know why. Just ignore that in the deck building. But for the time being, I'm going to grab Double Puzzle and a VS Seeker. Unfortunately, it looks like 2 of my VS Seeker are prized. So that means, well, 2 VS Seeker and my PCL are prized. Meaning that I will have to start trying to get those later in the game. Yeah, see, Max Potion would be really, really nice right now. But my opponent will be able to Horn Attack. He's getting that bench Sylveon dangerously close to being knocked out, so I will probably want to try to grab a Fairy Drop this turn to at least deny my opponent the ability to take prizes off that Sylveon. So now I'm finally going to play my Double Puzzle. Because, I mean, that's the last 2 that I have. Let's grab an Enhanced Hammer and a Fairy Drop. Or Parallel City. Yeah, let's grab that. I mean, okay, if my opponent knocks out Sylveon, that's okay. I just want to get rid of my opponent's ability to snipe, and also get rid of my opponent's ability to, well, obviously attack with Decidueye. And let's see. Is this the turn to GX attack? Let's save the energy. And since I got rid of my opponent's Forest, I think my opponent's out. So I'm going to go ahead and play GX. Put all of that Decidueye line back into my opponent's hand. That way, not only are his attachments wasted, but now he doesn't have the ability to just immediately evolve them right back up. Like, he has to take a couple turns, evolve his Rowlet, and at this point, I think I can start trying to knock out, at this point, I can start trying to take prizes on my opponent's Pokemon. Because I have a little while until my opponent's going to be able to, knock me out. So, for the time being, let's go ahead and grab the Team Rocket's Handiwork. I can damage this Tauros. I think my opponent's out of DCEs. Oh, wait. Do I want to Lysandre up the Shaman and take 2 prizes off that? My opponent's getting dangerously close to decking out. So, let's... This is a tricky turn. Let's actually... Shaman or Lugia? Lugia's starting to get powered up, and it could be a problem. Let's Rocket's Handiwork. I mean, I need to try to discard more cards from my opponent's deck. I get 4, and that is phenomenal. That is absolutely phenomenal. And now I'm going to Fairy Wind, try to start taking prizes, hit this Tauros for some damage. And oh no, please don't DC me. Okay, we're good. Alright, so I'm going to hit this Tauros, get it ready to, put it in a position to be knocked out by a Sylveon later. And, okay, my opponent's powering up the Lugia even more. He has... Oh, I did give him the Float Stone back. That's right. So he will be able to go into Lugia and hit me for 100 damage while powering up while evolving his Rowlets in the background. That's relatively okay, I think. Oh no, Super Odd. That's my mortal enemy because, yeah, if I had been able to Skull Grunt right there, I could have potentially won the game. Actually, I would have won the game with a single heads, but unfortunately, oh, he doesn't know that 2 of my VS Seeker are prized. So that's a bit unfortunate right there. This Sylveon is going to go down. So I kind of have to go all in on my Sylveon that's on the bench. So, for the time being, do I want to end? No, but yes, maybe. Actually, let's Team Flare Grunt. Because it would force... Yeah, let's Team Flare Grunt because it forces my opponent to have an attachment onto Lugia if he wants to attack, and the Lugia is going to go down next turn anyway. So at the very least, I mean, it's just kind of a, all right, let's force you to attach if you want to be able to attack. And I mean, my opponent gets his 2 Decidueye now, but you know what? That was 2 turns that I was able to not have to worry about the extra damage from Feather Arrow. That's 80 damage. That's not on the board because of Plea GX. So I consider that a win. My opponent gets 2 more prize cards. And he will be able to actually take a 4 prize turn. So I'm going all in on this Sylveon that's on my bench. Whew. I mean, we're getting down to the wire here. We're getting really down to the wire. My opponent's actually going to end me and end himself down to... I mean, that makes sense. That makes sense. He wants to avoid decking out. He has the Decidueye on the field to be able to just spread around damage. Ooh, I do draw into my Enhanced Hammer. I'm not sure how... Actually, that's kind of going to be a little bit worthless at this point. Air Ball will knock out my Sylveon. That's okay. He takes 2 prizes. I'll be able to end him down to 2 and go from there. So, yeah, I mean, I'll be able to take a knockout on this Lugia. Actually, let's Skyla. Grab that Lysandre. That way I can knock out the Lugia. I can knock out the Tauros. And then I can knock out the Shaman. So in 3 turns, I have the win on the board. I could have attached an energy right there just to get that out of my deck to avoid potential ends, but okay. Alright, PCL or... Nope. No Pokemon Center Lady or VS Seeker. So that's unfortunate right there. Did not draw into either of the cards that would have been really, really nice to have right now. Crap. Well, on the bright side, my opponent cannot attack because I've gotten rid... Well, I mean, he can go for a Hollow Hunt, but he can't damage me this turn with an attack. Actually, if he... If he manages to attach an energy, Hollow Hunt, while getting damage on me, that'd be 70, that'd be 80, and then 7. Actually, he'd still be 10 short because of my Parallel City. So Parallel City actually is going to probably come through really clutch, because what I was scared of is my opponent being able to bring up Decidueye, Hollow Hunt, and then get back DCEs while Feather Arrowing. But that would be... Okay, we see the Rowlet come down. Is he going to try to get a third Decidueye in play? If he gets a third Decidueye, then that's scary. But actually, he just Feather Arrows. Do we see the Hollow Hunt? Because if he has the energy to be able to Hollow Hunt, then we're in trouble. He does not. That is fantastic. So, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take a couple more prizes this turn. Nah, let's not. Let's knock out the Tauros. Because, I mean, I can knock out the Shaman whenever I want. The Tauros, if my opponent manages to get a DCE on there, it can Mad Bull GX and just obliterate my life. Actually, it wouldn't even have to Mad Bull GX. It could just Rage and obliterate me. So I'm going to get rid of that Tauros, get that threat off the board. I get my Pokemon Center Lady. That is phenomenal. That is going to be huge, huge, huge in these upcoming turns. Being able to heal off 60 damage and potentially have the win. The last Lysandre is in my deck. I need that. The last Lysandre, I need that to be able to bring up the Shaman to win the game. So, whew, this is really, really close. Luckily, my opponent will not be able to get rid of my Parallel City and my attacks. Well, actually, he could Hollow Hunt for it, but actually, So he can get back 2 DCE and a he can get back 2 DCE and a Forest of Giant Plants. If he does... Oh wait, if he does, then all I need to do is Skull Grunt away those DCE. And then even if my opponent plays down the Forest, I still have another Parallel City. And 2 more turns. Yeah. Actually, Feather Arrowing next turn. Oh, he does Hollow Hunt right now. Okay, let's see what he gets. Because if he gets only 2 energy, I can Skull Grunt those right away to where my opponent is just back to Feather Arrowing me for damage, which I can Pokemon Center Lady off, and at that point he is completely out of resources, I would think. Oh wait, my opponent grabs 3 DCEs, so this is starting to get tricky. On the bright side, I will be able to live through a Razor Leaf just because it only does 70 damage. I'm going to go ahead and play the Eevee. Do I want to? Because, I mean, I want it thinned out in case my opponent manages to N, but I don't even think he has an N anymore. So, if he Feather Arrows... If he Feather Arrows me twice, and he can knock me out with Razor Leaf. Okay, let's go ahead and just play Eevee down. Let's PCL up my Sylveon. And do I want a Fairy Wind or a Magical Ribbon? Wait, there's 2 cards left in my deck. Let's go ahead and Magical Ribbon. Please. To grab that Lysandre. Because, I mean, I won't deck out next turn. I am guaranteed not to deck out. If my opponent gets his last Decidueye, that's going to do... Oh my gosh, Parallel City's going to come through huge. If my opponent gets his last Decidueye, my opponent will be 10 damage short of winning. And we do see the third Decidueye. So he's going to be able to hit me for 60 damage with Feather Arrows. And then only 70 damage with a Razor Leaf because of Parallel City. I am going to survive this and win this game by 10 damage. Oh my god, that was huge. Oh, that was so clutch. Wow. Oh, and I even deck out right now. So that was... whew! Let's Lysandre up the Shaman, win the game with Fairy Wind. Oh my god, guys. That was insane. And there's my last 2 via Seeker. Glad you guys finally decided to show up to the party. But, oh my gosh. My heart is pounding right now. That was such a close game. I mean, don't get me wrong. I probably played that very incorrectly with how you're supposed to play Disruption, because I don't play Disruption. I don't know when you're supposed to stop disrupting, start attacking, or stop disrupting, start going for the deck out. I don't know the ins and outs or the intricacies of Disruption, mostly because I don't play it. But either way, that was a phenomenal game. I hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as you could. I tried to do something a little bit different with the Fairy Drop as opposed to Max Potion. Would have liked Max Potion in many scenarios this turn, but Fairy Drop did end up coming through clutch in the end for me anyway, so I consider it working. So anyway, thank you guys again for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff, and this is Styx signing out. Why not? See you guys.